Hello, welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, anything that you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy, and let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better. It just does. So first of all, let me thank you for coming along with me on this little drawing journey that we'll be making today. Hands and faces, always important to practice. So we're going to set our 6B pencil aside for now, and we're just going to use that number 2 just to get everything where it goes. And the first thing we want to do is establish where everything is. And so as we look at our piece of paper here, we want to utilize the entire surface. You don't want this little tiny head sitting in the middle. Number one, that's boring, and number two, it's harder to draw small. You got to trust me on that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, her head touches that top. I'm going to have that head clear up at the top, and her chin is almost in the center. It might be a little bit even lower than center, but I'm going to make a little mark there and just say that's where I want her chin to go. And then I can say, well, that entire surface is going to be her head. And about half of that, if I look at that down here, that's about where her ear goes. So I can throw in an ear just as a little oval. How close do you want it to the edge? I don't know, maybe not that close. Maybe I'm going to move it over a little bit. Now, what you do when you're doing this is you're just figuring everything out. And because this is on the surface, whatever you draw, you can get rid of easily. So draw it right first, and then get rid of what's wrong. So if you draw something incorrectly, it's not in the right place, which I do all the time, draw it right and then erase what's wrong. Now her head is kind of at an angle, and you kind of got to figure out what angle she's at, like this. You can even do, if you wanted to, do a little line just to remind yourself of what angle that's at. And you can also say, well, look at her off eye. She's almost a 3/4 view. This eye on this side is a little bit smaller than this eye is over here, as far as the width goes. Okay, and her nose sticks out a little bit away from the face there. So you can't have everything smack dab in the middle. And sometimes you can say, well, if this is the top of her ear, and I'm okay with that being there, and I come across in a curve like this, it's where her eyebrow is going to be. So you can kind of figure out where that eyebrow is going to go by where that line is, and then that helps to establish where everything else goes. You say, well, if that's the eyebrow, then the bridge of the nose is going to be over here, and her nose, you know, if I come from the earlobe right here, if I come over, again, I'm going to do that little curve because her head curves. Go like this, then I can say, well, that's where her nose is going to go. And you can do that little shadow under her nose. And if you get rid of some lines that you don't need, all of a sudden you start going, oh, I see the face starting to happen. You got the little philtrum, the little divot that's under the nose. It goes right in there. There's that little divot. Of course, that leads right into the lip. And remember, the lip is side view, and so it's kind of a triangle shape, kind of like that, even though that's not perfect. And if you wanted to, you could even shade it in, just so you could see where it's at. The bottom lip has a little shine on it, so just leave it out and say, well, there's a little shadow under the bottom lip. I can put that in there. And you can start seeing the face kind of come through. And I haven't really drawn anything. I've just put in these little shadows, little lines. And from here, you can adjust them up or down. You can say, well, that nose was too long, too far down. Just put a little shadow up a little closer. I'm even going to shadow right in under the eye. I can say, well, somewhere in there is an eye. You can shadow that a little bit and say, well, you know, there's the eye there somewhere, and there's an eyelid too. Maybe I'm going to leave a little bit of space for that eyelid. Maybe I'll move it over just a little bit. A little iris kind of looking out at you there. Although the bottom of the iris is cut off, and the top of the iris is cut off. You guys know what the iris is? The colored part of the eye. And so I can cut that off. But there's a couple of things I know about the face. First of all, the eyelid at the bottom is very light. And sometimes it blends into the white of the eye. And you can kind of see that happening right there. That's the bottom of the eyelid and the white of the iris. And so I just know that's going to happen. It does, because light hits that. So you can take that out, or you can, just leave that there. You can put in a little bit of shading underneath if you want to with the pencil. And if that looks about right to you, go ahead and get the other eye in there. Remember, it curves, and so this one's going to curve out this way just a little bit. It's going to curve up just a little bit. And that iris is now way over to the inside of the eye because the face is curving this way and she's looking out at us. You want those irises to almost line up. If you wanted to, you could put in a little Pac-Man shape, a little C shape for the pupil. Remember, there's a little shine across the pupil, and the shine, you don't want to do anything in that pupil or in the shine. You just do a little C shape or a little U shape for the pupil. And hopefully by now, this is really starting to come through. You're really starting to see it. Here's the eyebrow. The eyebrow kind of follows the bridge of the nose as it kind of comes up, and then kind of picks up and comes off the edge there. It's not near as curved because we don't see it. It's curved away from the body. Now we can establish where our fingers go. And don't draw the entire finger, just like we did with the face. We say top and bottom. So you say, well, okay, if that's her eyebrow, I can see that coming down. There's a tip of a finger right there. I'm just going to put a little shadow. There's a little tip of a finger there. A tip of the finger touching the eye over there. And the tip of the finger is just above the nose. So if this is our nose, this is the area of our nose. So just above that, and just down from the eye. Get a little bit of the eye there. Just down from the eye, right about in there is the tip of a finger. And you just put that fingertip there. And then draw the shadows in between the fingers. So like between this little finger and that one, there's a little shadow that's right there. So I'm just going to draw this little shadow. And it just kind of comes up until it almost touches the edge of the eye. Not quite. It's kind of inside a little bit like that. So there's a shadow right there. Just a little one. And then there's a little shadow coming down off of this finger. Just a little bit. And it comes down until it's about even with the bottom lip. And then it kind of curves outward towards the knuckle. So here's the bottom lip. So this is going to come down. It's going to curve out just a little bit. It almost straightens out. So that establishes the size of our fingers. Again, we can get rid of things. There's a little shadow right under the tip of our nose. Now our nose overlaps the finger a little bit. So we could come up and make that nose overlap the finger a little bit. And then there's a little shadow under there. My lip needs to go over a little further. And so does my little philtrum. So I'm just going to draw it where it needs to go. And then I get rid of what was wrong. And see how easy that is to erase? I mean, if we had used the tip of our pencil, never would have erased it. It would still be there. Curve your lip. Finger kind of comes in. There's a little shadow under the chin there. Look at the angle that travels. You can take your pencil and just kind of put the angle in there. Kind of turn and twist your pencil until it's about the right angle. And then draw it in. Sometimes it's hard to see those angles. Then you come in from the chin. There's the palm of her hand. Just draw that little shadow. It's just got a little slight curve. And the rest of her neck, this comes down, it's a little slight curve. And you can continue her chin, if you'd like, up towards her ear. Just remember to come down off the ear. Look at the space between the edge of your eye and the ear lobe. Comes down till it's level with the mouth. So if your mouth kind of comes up and around, you can kind of level off there. And then it just curves in, very slight curve. And the chin. I have to adjust, my ear's too high. So I'm going to adjust that. And this is why you do this, is you get your proportioning this way, and soon you'll end up with perfect proportions. I still struggle with it, by the way. So I've been doing this for a long time, 600 years. So what you're trying to do now is just get the basic shadows and line things up. This is called proportioning. So her knuckles, if you look at the tip of her nose, we've pretty much got that where it goes. You know, there are maybe a little adjustment, but you can go straight up from the tip of her nose. There's a little knuckle on her left hand, and her is that her left hand? But then you could go out again, and there's just a little bit of a knuckle straight off of that finger. If that fingertip that's on the tip of her eye comes straight down. And don't worry about all the really nuance of the knuckles yet. Comes get straight down just off the tip of the nose. And then it goes in till it almost touches that curve that we had. You just think of those little nuances. This other finger, you can't even see that. It just comes off of there and then comes straight up. And soon we'll have hands. Little knuckle right there. So there's a wrist that's down in here too. You can just simple shape the wrist. That whole section is just kind of simple shapes. Try to get the angle correct. And then you got it. Now remember, we're not really worried about fingernails and things like that yet. If we get to that point, we'll put that in. We may not. We might not ever get to that point. Never thought about the hair on this one. I was thinking of it as a background, and it kind of is. So when we get to that point, don't stress about the hair. I'll show you an easy way to do hair. So from this point on, you've got your proportions in, and all you got to do is shade in using the side of your pencil the values that you see. Now don't try to get too dark and light right now. Just go basic. So I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to look at some of those values that I see and shade those in very softly with that side of that pencil. Start around the eyes, the nose, when you're doing nostrils, if you just do the shape of the nostril, and just remember that the nostril does not, the inside does not connect to the outside. There's a little gap right there. When you shade it, you'll get that shadow. You gotta be kind of a little bit logical when you're drawing the face. You know what a face looks like. We've all got one. Just anything that feels kind of dark to you, just go ahead and put that in. And you may have to adjust a little bit and go bigger or smaller or whatever. Like for example, her lips, I've got it too long. You come straight down off of the inside of the eye. Here's my inside of my eye here. If I come straight down off of that, that's where the lip goes. So I'm gonna make a little mark and then just erase it. Remember, everything here is easily erased. You haven't ground it in yet. Here's the highlight on her lip. I'm going to put in that little, she's got a little shape that comes off her hair right there, and it comes down where her cheekbone is. I'm going to put that in too. Just kind of helps me see where the cheekbone is. We're going to shade that. We're going to put that in anyway. Ears are another thing. A lot of people don't like drawing because they're kind of weird looking. Everybody's ear is a little different. One day, we will be identified by the curves in our ear, because nobody's ear is the same. Kind of like fingerprints. So I go from the top of that eyebrow, go around. This should be about right. So, and when you get ready to do the hair, just blend in like the shapes of darkness that you see. So like right off here, kind of attaches on about 1/6 of her head is hair right there. I can just kind of take that and just do a little shadow right there. And rather than use the tip of your pencil, which we will in a little while, just use the side. Look at those dark areas, and just throw those in, leaving the edges very sharp, linear, sketchy. I don't know what the word is. And then if there's a shadow on the other edge, just pick that up. You can leave the center all, just leave it out. Nothing in there. Same thing over here. You can see where it was dark, where it came out of the head, and it comes over here, it gets light, and then it gets dark again. And just throw that in. It's your edges that are important. So in the middle where it's dark, you can just scribble it in dark. tip is still, up to this point, any mistake you've made can easily be erased and get rid of. The farther you get away from the face, the less stress you have, because nobody's looking at that area. So you can draw a little quicker. Be a little more spontaneous with it. I'm just taking all that dark area that's around her hand. I know it's hair. I'm just throwing in that darkness with the side of my pencil. It's a lot faster that way. And if you go in the direction that the hair flows, like some of it has this kind of coming across the other bit, I'm just going to throw that in there. And really nobody cares about the hair. I think this was a hair commercial. That's where I got the scrap from. So apparently somebody cares about hair. My wife's a cosmetologist. She cares about hair. But when you're drawing it, it's like, it's no big deal. Just look at the shadows. Drawing the shadows and leave your edges kind of coming together. Everybody realizes that's hair. No big deal. Don't be afraid to leave some areas out too, because you can always put them back in. When in doubt, leave it out. Now, a lot of that gray that's up in here, you can put in with your cotton swab. If you wanted to, you could blend it a little bit with your pencil and go in there and just add a little bit. It's up to you. Notice how far back I am on my pencil. If I'm clear back here, I can't press hard. And so sometimes I do that just to keep myself from pressing hard. Because I know me, I put in too much pressure. Just very lightly. These are those mid-tones. We're going to come back into it with our 6B and really make some dark areas. You can do the same thing in the fingers if you wanted to. When you're doing fingernails, what really defines the fingernail is the little area, the little cuticle thing that's around it. So just put in a little shadow there. Look at the shadows that are around there. You could define that. Don't use line, especially around the fingernails. It makes them look like somebody glued something onto the tips of their fingers. Now's the time to adjust it. Look at it, look at your scrap, and then adjust it. Draw it right, and then adjust it. I'm doing a lot of adjustment with my kneaded eraser because I've already drawn it in there. I can just throw that. So like that ear's a little bit big. I'm just going to adjust it with my kneaded eraser. One of the things that we'll be doing in the near future is some figure studies. And even though your figure is important, I think your hands and your head are more important. I think that if you can do hands and head, then your figures are just going to come through. There's a lot less stress about that. So at this point, you can also use your cotton swab, and you can go in there and just kind of blend a little bit. This will help you to see some of your very light shadows. And that also helps to see if your proportions are correct. Of course, the more you do it, the more you're going to be able to see. And you end up with kind of a little ghosty image. Like I say, if you can get some graphite on that cotton swab, you can draw immediately off of that. And now I'm looking at some of the shadows that I missed and thinking, okay, I can put those in now with this cotton swab. Because some of those are very light and thin. So your paper's white, so you're drawing light to dark. The cool thing about that is you can always add more. So don't be too concerned if it's not right to begin with. You can always add more. Trying to leave out any really light areas. There's a highlight across her cheek. Trying to leave that out. A little highlight across her eye. I want to leave that out. Very soft values. I used to do this all with a pencil, and it would take me hours and hours and hours. You can do an entire drawing in about an hour. Here's some hair. So right there where the hair kind of comes in, use your cotton swab to get those little wispy hairs in there. That cotton swab will make everything soft. And still, everything on here is easily gotten rid of if we needed to. When you're doing the hair, same thing. You just blend in the dark areas, just blend. It doesn't even matter which direction you blend. However, sometimes it does help when, especially on the edges, if you just blend towards the grain of the hair, however the hair is flowing. It'll give it the illusion that there's strands of hair in there. Sometimes, if you've got a brand new cotton swab and you think, I'd really like to draw with that as fast as I can, take a piece of tracing paper. There's two sides to the tracing paper, a smooth side and a rough side. And if you take the rough side up and you draw on it like this, and you just scribble off some graphite, then you can pick that up and use that, and you can paint or draw immediately with that cotton swab. Just pick up that graphite off of here and move it over. So that's a possibility too. I haven't worried about the fingers really, but as I blend, as I get going through that graphite, they'll come through. Sometimes we think, oh, we got to put a line around everything. We have to define it for our viewer. Well, the viewer likes excitement too, so let them discover it for themselves. If there's an edge that they can't see, let them discover it. They'll find it. So as an artist, sometimes you just gotta leave some things undone. but it's the experienced artist that can tell you what that is. So when in doubt, leave it out. You can always come back in and add more. Now, if we were talking about principles of art, you should kind of already have an idea of what the elements are, because we've been using them: value, texture, shape, space, form. No color in this. Lots of lines. But we really want to look at our drawing now and analyze it from the principles point of view, principles of design. So we've got proportion. We did the proportioning already, and that's where you kind of start comparing everything, sizes to this and that, where something starts and stops. That's all proportioning. About contrast. One thing that we really need to concentrate on here with this, trying to get the contrast in. So right now we've got our proportions, we've got our form starting to happen, but we need some contrast. We've got to make it more interesting. And up to this point, we've used only the HB pencil. So now we're gonna move on to our 6B. We want some heavy contrast in it. We want it to really pop and have some darkness in there. I'm going to start with the eyes, just because the eyes are very important. And that's kind of me. I just start with the eyes and kind of work my way down. So just 6B pencil, and now I'm to this point. I want to grind it into the surface. I want it dark. I want to really make those things pop. So here's some of this darkness. There's that fingertip right there. And if I want it to blend and be soft, I want my edges to be soft. So I'll actually go in there and not make them so hard-edged. I don't know. Does that make sense? So what I'll do is on the edges of those shapes, I'll make little circles, if you will, or lines up and down. I just soften those edges. Because I want it to pop, you're going to add a little bit of pressure to that. And that first little part of the drawing, you thought to yourself, oh, this is working out, this is great. Then you start adding the dark to it and you're like, oh, let's see where that needs to go. So when you're doing eyes, let me zoom into this so you can see what I'm doing. You want your eyes to be glassy. And in order to do that, you've got a lot of reflected light. So the first thing is you want your highlight to stay very, very bright. If you've all of a sudden put something into your highlight, take your kneaded eraser and pull it out nice and bright. You want that highlight to be as light as it can go. And then for me, I understand a little bit about the eye, so I'm going to shade in the iris part up at the top where it's closest to the eyelashes, because your eyelashes kind of come up and curve, and they're like a little canopy, and so there's a little darkness underneath that in your iris, right at the very top. I'll shade that in like that, and then I leave the bottom kind of out just a little bit. You know that there's a little bit of reflected light that's going to come off the nose or off the cheek. So in order to keep that eye nice and glassy, that's what you do. And then when you blend it, you can take your cotton swab, you just touch it up at the very top towards the bottom, top towards the bottom, and then that bottom area gets kind of glassy. And you can even enhance that a little bit by just touching it with your kneaded eraser. You can come in with your kneaded eraser and just add little touches right there, and that'll make that a little glassier too. So you want to keep that dark edge going. You want that little bit of reflected light that's in there. And there's an eye, a very realistic looking eye. Remember, your bottom eyelid is always very light. There's always a little bit of light there because you've got either reflected light or light from above. So you want to leave right under the iris, you want to leave it a little bit lighter. Then you've got your eyelashes coming out from there. So there's a little dark area there. But that's what the contrast does for you. Look at the difference between this eye and the first one we did. You know, we need some more of that contrast going on. So I'm going to do that with the second eye too, and then I'll blend them together, and hopefully they'll look pretty good. Dark shape where the eyelashes are. And the eyelashes really are one of the last things you do. Once you get your shadows in first and you blend them, and your eyelashes are kind of the last things you throw in. And the hair, when you're doing the hair, try to get your lines to go in the direction that it flows. And then when you blend it, it'll look like hair. So I did the iris first. The little dark edge around the iris. Remember to leave just a little bit of light on the bottom. I'm going to blend all that. And if you're doing a female eye and she's got makeup on like this one, just blend that in, softens it up. Even the whites of your eye aren't white, so don't be afraid if you get some of that blended into the white part. It's okay, it's not white. You can always take it out with your kneaded eraser if you need to. Then the last thing you want to do, put in your eyelashes. Remember, they curve up. They're not straight lines, they're curves. Come up, curve, up and curve. I think drawing is all about being able to see what is really happening. And then try and reproduce it with a pencil. There's a little bit of magic in that. Even the bottom eyelashes, if you want to put a few of those in there. You can get a very realistic looking eye using this technique of shading. Easy way to do nostrils is when you shade in that little swoosh, that little curve. Remember, don't touch the edge with it because there's a little bit of flesh right there. It's the thickness of your nostril. And when we blend it, it'll work out. It'll come together. There's our core shadow, just like we did the sphere. If you've never drawn a sphere, I'll give you an opportunity next week. Leave a little bit of edge. Then, as you smear it, you can get that reflected light coming through. That just increases your form. Just makes everything look nicer. So this is just like your sphere. You've got your light side, your highlight, shadow edge, shadow core, reflected light. Anything that's dark, throw it in. And if yours doesn't look like her, that's okay. It's important here. You're learning the lights and darks. The likeness will come later. You want some little breaks in the flesh, like where the lips are. A couple little lines or little shapes of darkness in there. Just leave the light out in between. A little bit of blending, and you got it. And with the lip, if you blend too much into that highlight and you think, oh no, I got rid of the highlight, what am I going to do? Just take your kneaded eraser, pinch it down to a little point, go back in there and just touch in those little highlights again. It'll come through. So once you get the eyes, the nose, and the mouth done, everything else is going to go fast because you can just scribble it in. So we spend a little bit of extra time making sure that those are right. And everything else we just scribble in. So I'm just going to go pretty fast, just scribble in as much dark as I can see. When I get to the hair, in fact, I can go back to this technique with the hair because nobody cares about the hair unless you're a cosmetologist. And just the hair is just zigzags. Just, shorter the hair, the more zigzag you got. But this that gets longer, you just start using line the side of your pencil. The more you add, the better it gets. So you got your shadows, the dark areas. Usually where it comes out of the head, and then it'll turn and get light, and then it'll go back to getting dark. Just leave that shape in the middle out. Get your darks on both sides. And then you can take one or two little lines and come from one edge or the other in. try to be as random as you can. You blend that, you take your kneaded eraser just like we do the lip, and voila, you've got it. My wife says I make everything easy. But in reality, drawing is just scribbling. You just scribble with style, you know? Scribbling with purpose. And hopefully too, that hand will just start coming through. Just keep doing the darks, and that hand will come through. You don't have to. In fact, don't even draw lines around things. Just let them happen. Do the shadows. So the hair, as you blend it, it looks pretty good, but what really makes it pop is you just take your kneaded eraser and you come into those light areas and just throw out just a couple little spots. You don't need a lot, just a little. Thing you want to do though is sign it. You want to make sure you sign it. And thanks for coming along on this little journey with me today. Hope you have a lovely day. Remember, art makes life better with just